In this part, we'll be talking about the meristematic tissue. Now, first thing is what type of cells are these? So, number one, they continuously divide. So, they are continuously dividing to produce new cells. Now, those new cells may again divide or they may become specialized. That means they may become permanent. But this tissue is going to continuously divide. The second thing, the cells have primary cell wall. That means the secondary layer and the tertiary layers are not deposited. Primary cell wall is flexible because these cells have to continuously divide. The next is they have a large prominent nucleus. Large prominent nucleus because the cell is dividing. That means every time it has to go through the cell cycle. And in cell cycle, we know that the cell goes through G1 phase, S phase, G2 phase. That means DNA replication, protoplasm synthesis, all these things have taken place. So nucleus is large and a prominent nucleus. Cytoplasm is dense and is with sufficient nourishment. Cytoplasm is dense with nutritive material because it has to provide the nourishment, because the new cells which are formed, they would require energy. Vacuoles are normally absent in meristematic cells. Vacuoles are normally absent, which is a characteristic feature of plant cell. In plant cells, we normally draw a big vacuole. In case of meristematic cells, the vacuole is absent. But when the cell elongates, that time the vacuole appears and then the vacuolar elongation would take place. Another feature which is found in the meristematic cells is that cytoskeleton is absent. Cytoskeleton is required to provide framework to the cell. But this cell, it is going to continuously divide, so that framework is not required. So these are some basic characteristic features of meristematic cells. Now, these meristematic cells are found location-wise at the tip, that is apical meristem, lateral and intercalary. So when we talk of the root tip and the shoot tip, then we will be able to understand where this meristem is. So we are first talking about the diagram of the root tip. Root tip means it is going to arise from radicle. So this part is the root tip, and the root tip is protected by a thimble or a cap-like structure which is called the root cap. So this structure is the root cap. Now root cap is protecting the tip, and in this tip region are present the meristematic cells. So tip has these actively dividing cells which we call the meristematic cell. This is the apical meristem. I have left some space in the middle. In the middle part are present some cells which are temporarily inactive. That means they are not going to divide, they just stay there. This area is known as quiescent zone. Quiescent zone is a zone of non-dividing cells. Then why are these cells present at the tip region or between the meristematic cells? They are inactive division-wise. But whenever required, they would start dividing. So it is kind of a reserve tissue which is there. So this quiescent zone is present in the center of the apical meristem of the root tip. plus the cells which are here, the meristematic cells which are here, they produce new cells which would result in the elongation of the root, and at the same time these cells would also form the root cap. So meristematic cells which give rise to or which produce the root cap, they have been given a new name. They are called calyptrogen. Root cap is known as calyptra. So calyptra generating calyptra generating cells, that is the meristematic cells which divide to produce the root cap. Because root cap cells, they undergo wear and tear because this root is going to go through the hard soil. So outer cells are undergoing this wear and tear, and new cells are produced from inside. So those cells are known as calyptrogen, and this quiescent zone is found in the center of the meristem. It is at the tip, so we call it apical meristem. Now in case of shoot tip, how is this shoot formed, or the plumule which is giving rise to the stem formed? What happens is, suppose this is the plumule which is going to give rise to the complete stem structure. Initially, there are few cells. Suppose we draw a couple of cells here, and these are the meristematic cells. Now, in the next stage, what will happen? The cells have divided. I am drawing the meristematic cells with same black, but say this meristematic cell has divided to produce one cell which is going to remain meristematic and the other cell which will become the permanent. So this cell has divided to produce one meristematic cell and one permanent cell. This one has divided to produce say two permanent cells. This has divided to produce two permanent cells. Here also it has produced permanent cell. So now what has happened over a period of time is, I'm going to make this little larger. So now here the meristematic cells are still there. Some meristematic cells, they got separated from the original part. And in between, now we have the permanent tissue. So this one is known as the apical meristem, and this is going to give rise to intercalary and lateral meristem. So from here, the leaf primordium will arise. So from this part, we would start seeing the leaf-like structure. So this will give rise to a leaf. From here also a leaf would arise. So at the base, this meristem will be called the intercalary meristem. So this is intercalary. These two meristems are formed in the beginning itself. So apical and intercalary are called the primary meristems. These two are primary because they are formed in the early stage of the plant life. Now where is this lateral meristem? Lateral meristem is going to arise here. So this is how the stem is going to grow, and this is the lateral meristem. Lateral meristem arises later on. So lateral meristem is known as the secondary meristem. Secondary meristem. So the first formed meristem is primary, later on formed is secondary. So in case of root tip, there is only apical meristem, whereas in case of stem tip, we find apical meristem also. In case of monocots, we find the intercalary meristem also, and later on the lateral meristem also develops. So these two are formed first, the apical and the intercalary. So we call them primary meristem. Lateral one, which is fascicular, interfascicular, cork cambium, they will develop later on. So they will be called the secondary meristems. So typical characteristic features of all meristematic cells or tissues same. Location wise, in case of root we have only apical, whereas in case of stem, because certain meristematic cells they get separated from the original apical meristem and between them we find permanent. So what exactly is intercalary meristem? The meristematic cells which get separated from the apical meristem and are surrounded by the permanent cells. Those meristems are known as intercalary. And intercalary meristems, these ones, they are characteristic features of monocots. And that is why in monocot, the leaf elongation is because of intercalary meristem. This is the base from where the leaf is arising. Or in case of other plants, this is the structure which is going to give rise to a bud. So if it is not a monocot, then instead of leaf, we may find a bud growing from here. So this is how the meristems are divided into various areas, and depending upon that particular location, we have given it the name. So classification was first form, later form, that is primary and secondary, and then location wise. At the tip, apical meristem, which is circular in circumference, that will be lateral meristem, and if the parts are left here and there, then they form intercalary meristem. So this is about the meristematic tissue. Now, in the next part, we will start with the permanent tissue.